Okay, black sheep, scapegoated children of your family, gather up because we need to talk. If you were the scapegoat in your family system, you were assigned the blame for what your family refused to deal with in themselves. But somewhere in that process, you took all of that blame, you turned it into shame, and let it define who you are. As a result, you now walk around this lonely, big world, ashamed to the core of who you are, feeling like you don't belong. The family that exiled you managed to internally force you to exile each and every part of yourself that they rejected. And on top of that, right now, you just don't even know who you are. So if you're your family's scapegoat, you are carrying a deep, insatiable need to be seen and understood. A need that was never truly met, and if anything, you were met with so much chronic invalidation. Because you've been told for so long that you're the one to blame. You're the one that did things, made everything hard for others, the one that ruined the peace, the one that ruined the functional dysfunction that you were in by speaking up or not conforming. And the thing is, even after what they've done to you, flocking against you like hyenas, like you're the wounded child that everybody sort of like attacked more and more. And as they attacked you, the more wounded you got. And as you got more wounded, the more you reacted, and the more they attacked you and blamed you. They cornered you, they exiled you. It was really hard to breathe in that home, but at the same time, it was really hard to leave. Because if you were to leave, where would you go? First of all, practically, but also, where else would you belong if you didn't even belong in your own family? And so you thought, maybe if I can fix it, I'm going to teach them, I'm going to awaken them, I'm going to make them see what a kind-hearted creature I am, because I crave justice, I crave fairness, I crave equality, in a family that only seems to reserve love for the chosen ones. That's something that never happened for you, no matter how much you tried. But that's the thing. The scapegoated children are exiled and rejected from their family systems because those toxic and dysfunctional family systems are not ready for truth or authenticity. And most importantly, if those toxic and narcissistic systems that you're in will never accept anybody to rebel, anybody to question the almighty authority of how things work, or whoever is mandating that things happen a certain way. So, of course, you will be to blame. And if you ever want to kind of try and belong with those families, you're going to have to abandon all the parts of you, the most important parts of you that make you you, right? You have to stop speaking up, voicing opinions, just super edit yourself in so many ways that you don't trigger them into somehow again pointing the finger and say, you were always like that. Why are you always like that? It's your fault. It's your fault. All the while, nobody's looking at the real problematic person, which is a narcissistic parent, possibly, or if you're really, really hitting the trauma jackpot, it's both of them. Nobody's looking at them or pointing fingers at them for being the problem. If anything, everybody's siding with them. Because in these family sort of dynamics, if you want to be safe, you're going to side with the strong, and the strong is the punisher. And the strong is going to be mean and horrible to the scapegoat, and then you, as a proof of your devotion, are going to have to do the same. So you're looking at the black sheep, or you're being looked at as the black sheep, and your siblings are like, why don't they just do what we do? There's a reason dad treats you this way. There's a reason mom is always on your case. Why are you doing these things? Look at us. We're not doing these things. What they're really saying is like, just accept this absolute authority of this unstable person telling you how to live your life and what to do and setting rules that keep changing, and don't speak up for injustice, just conform. That's what they're telling you. Right? They're teaching you how to conform. And so the training of such sort of dynamic is really simple, because as you're being punished for being different, your siblings are watching And all they're thinking is, I'm never going to do what they're doing because I don't want to end up like them. Right? So you're the example, punished person, and they learn from that example, and then they obey. Right? And all of this, your kids, this is it. Like, you're punishing a child in front of other children. And so the other children see them be punished and they're like, I'm never going to do the things that they do. And also I'm going to kind of keep my distance from this child because I don't want to associate with the one that gets punished in case I also get in trouble. So let me go side with the God, with the strong parent, with the abuser, really. And everybody just becomes a bystander of you being abused and kicked out of your own family system because you don't conform with the rules and the abuse, and you speak up and you have an opinion. And so if you're a scapegoat, you learn early on that standing up for what you believe in or what you won't tolerate is punishable. And paradoxically, although you may have all this power in you to do all of that in your family system, eventually in life, you may stop doing that altogether. Because you're thinking, you've been so punished for speaking up, and eventually you're like, just not going to do it anymore. So the definition of the scapegoated child is the child who is unconsciously assigned the role of carrying the family's projected shame, rage, and dysfunction. This child becomes the emotional dumping ground, blamed for any relational tension, targeted for punishment, and pathologized for behaviors that often reflect the very dysfunction they're responding to, right? All of these are symptoms. The scapegoat is showing symptoms of the dysfunction, but then these parents are looking at the child and going, why are you like this? And never once thinking, if my child is like that, does that have to do with what my child is going through? No, never. It's never a narcissistic parent's fault. Haven't you learned that already? Right, so scapegoating serves a defensive function for narcissistic or emotionally immature parents because it protects the family's self-image by externalizing responsibility into one problem. This allows the parent to maintain control, deny their own shortcomings, and preserve an illusion of harmony at the expense of the scapegoated child's identity, self-worth, and psychological development. Basically, if you are the scapegoated child of your family, you were used as the family's dartboard. So why does scapegoating happen in narcissistic families? Because narcissistic parents cannot tolerate truth, difference, or disruption. Because a child that questions, notices, or doesn't conform becomes threat, right? It's like, when somebody's rebelling, they usually try to shut down the rebel quickly before the rebel influences the rest of the people who are oblivious or not aware of what's going on or don't act yet, right? So you don't want a rebel to inspire some other people in the family to also question you, because you have your little cult. You have the rest of the family is your little cult following your words, never questioning your authority. And you have this child causing problems to that, and they're just trying to poke on your image. And you're like, I'm going to shut this child down in any possible way that I can, but most importantly, I'm going to isolate the child and let it be known from the other children that they shouldn't be associated with the child because they don't want to end up like this child, right? The narcissistic parent will abuse you in humiliating rituals as a way to make others obey, right? Again, nobody wants to be like you. This is the example they want to set. They don't want to just destroy you or shut you down. They want everybody to see it in a ritualistic way. What happens to those who speak up, who dare to question authority in an all-authoritarian, patriarchal, narcissistic, toxic household that has one leader that is supposed to decide about everyone. And if you had a narcissistic mother, and I say that in a lot of my videos, it didn't change. It's usually, this is like the structure that we see in patriarchal families, especially, in what we were used to seeing. This is usually the father. This is the man, which takes up all the roles of a god. It's like a mini sort of cult inside the home, and then that cult expands to a god, but the first god is assigned to be a man, which is like built in the image of God. What a coincidence. But at the same time, many of you may have a mother who is like that, all authoritarian, the one that exiles you, the one that scapegoats you, the one that humiliates you and does all these rituals against you. That doesn't mean it's a matriarchy though, right? It's still within the patriarchal standards. Just so don't think, oh, it was my mother who was in charge. It was a matriarchy. So no, the way that is structured, such systems are always based on overpowering the vulnerable to gain power and authority for ourselves. We are becoming gods of the system. We don't accept to be questioned. We don't allow people to exist as people. We don't nurture. We just want to be in charge of everybody, basically in control of everybody. And we do it based on what we need from them, right? So it's almost like in a patriarchal home, as in a patriarchal society, the whole world is the use of the world and everybody around us is so that we feel good about ourselves. And it's the same in these homes, right? You have the one parent who is always like the one that always decides what's going to happen, and everybody's just running around trying to please that person. And so everybody's life is going around that person, and it can be both a mother or a father. For a lot of you, it can also be sort of both, which is hard. It's hard for them to click when they're both like that. It's usually one of them is going to be more self-absorbed than the other, and the other is just catering to the self-absorbedness of the other. And is also kind of a victim of the other in a way and in a sense, but both of them are failing. The most important task that they have is to protect you, because the one that's abused is not protecting you from the one that's abusing you, and the one that's abusing you was supposed to be protecting you from the world abusing you, but then they become your abuser. So the only way you can be protected by them and gain protection, which is an expensive way, is to conform. But if you're the scapegoat, that means you weren't, and that means that you lost access to safety because you didn't conform, right? So even your safety in this household is not guaranteed unless there's obedience and conformity, and you don't create issues, really. Sounds logical, doesn't it, right? That you being kept safe by the person who brought you to life is going to be earned by how well you behave, or else you can lose access to that and they're going to treat you badly. Now, what makes someone the target of being the scapegoat, right? Are you just born a rebellious child that doesn't want to listen to anyone? I would assume yes, right? When you see children, you see some children from the beginning that they're kind of like the reactive children and they always speak their mind. They have this curiosity for independence that cannot be shut down as quickly and as easy of other children, right? So these children usually have the curiosity to question stuff and to want to do stuff, and all of these things trigger the leader, who is threatened to lose their authority by a 3, 4, 5, 10-year-old questioning their authority. So they see you are emotionally awake, you're rebellious, thinking for yourself, you were loud, you're possibly authentic, and you just didn't perform, right? So whenever they had the opportunity to try to put you in those tracks, you kind of went out and you were like, no, I don't want to do this. And then as you exhibit signs of being your own person and not following the flock, this narcissistic parent starts to see you as a target because you're a problem. So how does it happen? And you then turn into the one that's blamed for everything. Well, these family systems are built on shame, and there's so much to be said about this. But basically, in all families, we all have assigned roles so that dysfunction continues to function, right? But the thing is that in these families, there's a lot of shame, and usually the scapegoat child is the one that's going to be projected on all this shame. And then by doing all of that to you, by projecting onto you, by treating you badly, by trying to shut you down, you will begin to develop symptoms, right? If you're being abused and constantly judged and constantly told you're not like the others and constantly told, why are you like this? When you're constantly being explicitly shown that you don't belong there, that you're too different and that's not a good thing, you will develop symptoms, aggression, addiction. You won't be able to cope with school. You'll gain weight or lose weight. You'll have a mental illness. You'll have depression. You will do all sorts of things because that's how you're trying to cope And a lot of that is also a cry for help. So a lot of what we will try to do to cope with with feeling so cornered and unsafe in our own home, right? And not knowing what to do, to just feel safe like those other children, because we can't choose to conform. It's not really it's not an easy choice, especially when you're a child. It's like it's not a choice. It just feels like there's so much anger boiling up from everything we're seeing, injustice, unfairness, the things that we're being told, the lies, the incongruencies, the insanity in that home. When we're calling it out in such an authentic way, it's just really hard to control it, right? So the choice of like saying, I'm just going to conform, it's most like an unconscious one, more than a conscious for a child, which is not easy to be taken if it's not really part of our way of being as a human, right? Our other siblings possibly did it very early on, and that became then their way of being. And then they became the golden children and all that, but it's harder for the scapegoat to kind of like hold that down. But even if we try to hold it down, it turns into aggression, right? It turns into a lot of feelings within we don't know how to cope with, which is why we'll pick up a bunch of coping mechanisms and do all sorts of things to navigate through how difficult it is to feel exiled and that you don't belong in your own family home for just being yourself. This is the punishment that you learn very early on. Are you being yourself? You're going to be punished. Are you questioning authority? You're going to be punished. Are you trying to tell me that I'm not perfect? You are going to be punished. So when all of this happens, then the family is just looking at you, or they're addicted. She's gaining weight. She's not eating. She is doing this. She's doing all this crazy stuff at school. She's not performing at school. Let's go to therapy. Let's talk to her. You need to do that. And suddenly, your entire family is suffering because you have symptoms from the abuse that you've been witnessing and enduring without being able to be validated by anyone, and you just silently go through it, and then you're blamed for it. And so many of our mental health illnesses, we're like, we have them in the DSM. We're like, it's this, it's that. Yeah, but why? Right? Why do you think? Imagine chronically invalidated, chronically blamed for everything, treated like you don't belong in your own family system, not being allowed to speak your mind, to set boundaries, to show your anger, to show disappointment, to speak up, to speak your opinion. You're not allowed to do that. How long is it going to take before something happens to you internally that feels like a dysfunctional way and a maladaptation to all of this mess, right? That then becomes your personality, and you're like, it's my personality. It's not. You've adapted to crazy environments. And so on top of being in these environments, then on top of that, it is very hard to leave them, even if they're abusing us, even if they're treating us horribly. And I've been working with scapegoated children for a long time, and as one myself, obviously. What would I be doing here if I wasn't a scapegoat? I have to say that all the suffering and insanity we go through isn't enough for us to be like, okay, I'm done, I'm leaving. Because first of all, we don't really understand for a long time that this isn't our fault. We've internalized all of this mess for so long that we're like, something is wrong with me. If I only fix it, my dad, my mom, my siblings will be happy, and everybody will be happy with me, and I will belong in this beautiful family that is just a nightmare to be around, right? But it's just the illusion. I want a family. I want to feel what it's like to be like them. Look at them. They're so good with each other. They don't seem to get punished like that. They don't seem to get treated like that. So it's like, something is wrong with me. I want that too. How do I get that? So we create this illusion that they're happy. They're not. Trust me, if you were to go close and to look close to a golden child, which again, it's also people I work with come from all backgrounds, and being a golden child is not less abusive than being the scapegoated child. It's just a different experience. But the core root of golden or scapegoat child is that you are not allowed to be yourself. It's just that one of them conformed to it and the other didn't. So there's different consequences for each that are quite difficult for our life, right? But scapegoated children are abused in ways that feel more obvious, right? It's just horrible to be exiled like that. And I just want to take a moment here and say that I want you to, if you are one of those children, I want you to really find pride in the fact that protecting what was right became more important than protecting yourself, because that shows me that you believe in something bigger than yourself, even from even when you were a child. So you were willing to fight for what's true. You were willing to fight for what's right. And you were willing to side, I'm assuming, as you grew up, for those who also sort of are being unfairly treated, right? So you're not afraid to put yourself in front of the line and say, you know what, I'm not going to allow this injustice. I'm not going to allow this to happen. And I'm going to say something. I'm going to speak up. And in a world where we're all kind of trying to like keep it quiet and keep it to ourselves so we don't get in trouble, advocating for others and speaking up is important. It's important and it's valuable. And I see it through my own work too, that so many of you, you know, say in the comments that you feel so seen and all that. And it's part of my mission, right, in doing this is to give you the validation that you deserve to have. It's almost like I want to advocate for you as much as nobody advocated for me, right? So it's like now I'm thinking I have the voice, I have the platform, I'm here and I'm going to say it. And by saying it, I'm exposing myself in all sorts of things. But honestly, the more I say it, the more I think, why aren't people, you know, some people would say in the comments, oh, it's so refreshing you talk about these things. Nobody talks about these things. And I think to myself, why? Why aren't people talking about this? Because it's blatant. It's there. Everybody knows. We're all just trying to tiptoe around the nuclear family, the systems that are giving us sort of like this sense of belonging, the false sort of sense of gratitude and respect and devotion to family systems that trashed our soul and our little young psyche for the sake of them continuing to feel good about who they are. So they preserve their image as a good and functional family, all at the expense of our own mental health. So why would I not speak up for this? I don't even think it was an option for me, to be fair. So these would have been things that the younger me would have been like, finally, I can't believe somebody's saying that, right? Because there's so much invalidation when you are the scapegoat. People will say, come on, it's your father, it's your mother. Well, have you tried doing this? Why don't they do that to your sister? Have you thought about that? Well, maybe you should do more like your sister. And you're like, what? And you just get all that rage. Then nobody can validate and say, of course you're angry. Of course you don't want to conform to insanity. So there's this erroneous notion that in our effort to sanctify the sacrificial lamb, the scapegoated children is that these children then have to now come back and save their families, to bring healing, to end a generational trauma. So on top of being abused, exiled, and riddled with all these symptoms of dysfunction that now define you still, you are also meant to be the savior of your family. I wonder if there's a theme, right? We torture, exile, and then turn someone into a savior. Sounds familiar. Sounds like a familiar thing. We exile the truth teller, then call them a savior. So we don't have to change. It's not heroic, it's a setup. So this whole generational trauma and the generational trauma is not going to happen by you saving those who abused you or healing them, but by eradicating them from your inner landscape, rejecting what they taught you about yourself, and reclaiming your right to be yourself, to be your authentic self, and while it's doing all of that, to have access to belonging in this world. So you belong as you. This is the healing for you, to sit down in a corner of this world and be like, you know what? I belong here. I may not belong in this family system. I may not belong in this country, in this friend group, in this whatever cult that you find yourself in, but I belong in this world. Because I am in this world and I'm part of this world, right? Because they conditioned and gatekept your belonging for far too long. So, by erasing their voices from your inner world and listen and lead with your own voice, then you take charge, right? You take the reins, right? So basically, the scapegoat child has to stop trying to carry the dysfunction of the whole family, carry all that shame for them, and be allowed to be the person that is responsible for everybody's suffering so that they don't have to look at themselves. And if there's something that I want you to become passionate about, is to find a way to love and accept and belong to yourself and be okay with who you are in whatever way or shape or form that you are, because that is the exact antidote to what they did to you. So you don't have to be like, I'm going to become so perfect and so happy, and I'm going to have so many friends, and everybody's going to love me, because you're going to go on this performative trip on trying to prove that, you know what, the world does love me. It's just you guys. You know what? You don't need to prove anything, because none of that was true to begin with. None of that was true to begin with. You were just part of a very dysfunctional family, and you were the victim of people who abused you and used you in ways that now damaged you. So we get that out of the way, and what they did, what the core thing that they did, is made you feel like you don't belong in this world, and that you're problematic, and your uniqueness and your authenticity and who you are is the problem why you're not accepted, right? So what you will do to reverse that is to find a way to take all of who you are, the fullness, the uniqueness, the weird, whoever you are, and show up as that person in this world, and just belong in this world for being this way. And the thing is that when you do that, then you will start meeting other black sheep that are not coming to you because they're same, they're just like you, they want everybody to be the same. You know, the way we build communities as our authentic self is not based on sameness, it's based on, are we authentic? If everybody's just themselves, that's how we build connection. That's like the common theme between us, is the fact that we're all trying to operate and honor our authentic nature. We don't try to hide it. We don't try to mask, people please, conform, look good, be perfect. We don't do any of that. Just people who operate, humans who operate through being themselves, through self-acceptance, and don't try to always hide who they are so that they belong. Your biggest bet is to accept yourself. This family system rejected you, and as an effect, you have rejected so much of yourself. And how do you reclaim all of that self? Well, inner child work. That is the essence of everything that I teach you guys, is to go back to the younger you, to do healing work, to go back to your past and reclaim all of these pieces that are stuck in the past and that you've exiled and disowned because they were not accepted. And as you do all of that journeying with your, younger self, then you become a compassionate witness to all of that. And you becoming the compassionate witness finally feels like in your system that, you know what? I'm fine. There was nothing wrong with me, kind of thing. Like it just feels in a way that I cannot put it in words and give it to you because you won't believe it, right? It's just an experience as we become an observer of those experiences, and both the one that experiences them as we activate the inner child, then we create a way of relating within ourselves that we've never, ever witnessed, right? Empathy, understanding, looking at ourselves without judgment, no expectation of perfection. Unlike whatever was done to us, right? And all of this work is done not to save your family system, but to save the parts of you that were abused by that family system, and to create a better life for the future you that deserves it, because you missed out on so much, right? Now, this type of work is intense work and it's challenging work, but I'm not scared for you, because if you've been scapegoated, that tells me that your emotional bandwidth and resilience is immense. So if you gave yourself the chance to this time use it, instead of like tolerating abuse, to tolerate some truths and some pain and some memories and some acts of liberating yourself, it's almost like you're on this rescue mission, and it's hard, right? You have to keep rescuing these parts of you and keep raising them and keep doing all this work, but it's totally worth it. And if you want support in doing this work, I've created a journey that is exactly that, called Heal. Check it out. It's in the description box. But what's important to know is that so much of what happened to you has shaped you the way you are now. But when you start doing inner work and inner child work and parts work, specifically working with the parts that they tortured, the healing that can come out of this is going to be life transformative. And so no amount of trying to get them to love you, or no amount of trying to be someone else, whatever, is going to correct this the way this type of work does. So don't avoid doing that work. And so stop putting so much effort onto them and trying to make it work with them, and try to make it work with you and within, right? And Heal is here to support you, and I'm going to be with you. I've created it in such a way where I can support you through the process, because it's a long process, but it's a beautiful process, and I'm excited. I'm excited welcoming you in it, and I'm excited seeing you walk out of it. It's like a proud, I don't want to say mother, but I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud of you doing the work, proud of you showing up, and I'm proud of us in general for coming so far, considering how little we're giving. And not only little, we're also, broken down for the most part. So whatever it is that you managed to do so far, I want you to start valuing that as you have done great for what was given to you. And now you could do more by healing yourself, by taking care of yourself, by healing those wounds, changing the beliefs, and finding belonging within yourself. I'll see you soon.